hope these owners can slow down, take their time, take a page out of Dan Rooney's book, and just, go through the process slowly, get the right candidate, feel like it's going to be a 15-year decision. I've actually talked to two of my buddies who are still coaching in the playoffs, and they're asking me, I don't know what to do. They're asking me to interview this weekend or Monday, and we're going to be playing, and I'm going to be preparing. I don't know if I can do that. And I told both of them, tell the teams, hey, don't talk to me until we're out of this. I've got too much going on. I owe my team, I owe my players that focus. And I can't do this. This whole system, to me, is messed up. We've got to let these guys do their job, slow it down, and still feel like they've got a chance to get these jobs after they get knocked out of the playoffs.
Yep, Tony Dungy, absolutely right. And this is something Peter King talked about last week. And I know last year I spoke to somebody within the coaching industry about this reality that you're getting ready for a playoff game.
Makes no sense.
You're busy. You're very focused, supposedly. Meanwhile, you're interviewing for head coaching jobs, and you've got to have your staff lined up, so you're spending free time making phone calls and sending text messages to people who may be joining you, because when you interview, you need to be able to write a check that you can honor when you say, this is who I think I can get from my staff. And the point that was made to me last year, and we can't say this enough, because it really crystallizes the conflict it creates for the assistant coach, the coordinator who's getting ready to try to win a playoff game. When he goes home, if he's married, when he goes home that night, his wife is not going to say when he walks through the door, how's the game planning coming for the playoff game this weekend? Yeah. She's going to say, as she should,
how's that job that you might get $6 million a year for?
Have you heard anything about that job?
Right.
The one that will change our lives forever. Have you heard anything about that job? So it creates a huge conflict of interest that is understandable for the coach, but there needs to be a better way. And I don't know what the answer is, Chris, because I know Peter thinks there should be a moratorium on any interviews, any hiring, any effort to fill these jobs until after the Super Bowl. With the Super Bowl in the middle of February, I don't know that works. I mean, it's easy to say, well, just push back the Senior Bowl, push back the scouting combine, push back the draft, push back free agency. That's not practical either. They love their offseason tent poles. They love where they are. They don't want to start moving things around just to accommodate the hiring process. So I don't know what the answer is. But what we're doing now creates too much stress and too much inherent natural conflict for the candidates for these other jobs. And it makes it harder for the coachings or for the teams looking for coaches to really do it the right way.
I don't know what the answer is either. I do know that it's just unfair and wrong right now, and on a lot of levels, in my opinion. Of course it's unfair to the coaches that are in the playoffs. Of course it is. It's just not right. I mean, again, you talked about it a little bit. The intensity in the playoffs, it's a real thing. It changes within a building. I know people think, whoa, football's intense all the time. I'm just telling you, the few times I was in a building during the playoffs, you can feel the tension. You can cut it with a knife. No one wants to go home. No one wants their season to end. Legacies are determined by your playoff wins and what you do there. You got a chance to win a Super Bowl ring and have a life-changing moment, okay? Everybody in the NFL, other than the top 2 or 3 highest paid players, are going to get big checks for each round they keep winning in the playoffs. There's real cash incentive for these players and coaches to keep playing, keep winning, let alone their competitors, and they want to play. The second thing is, okay, the other thing I don't like about it is I think it's unfair to the whole product of the NFL. I mean, again, here we are. I mean, I want to see the Tampa Bay Bucks at their best on Saturday afternoon on NBC, or Sunday afternoon on NBC when they're getting to play the Los Angeles Rams. Well, I don't know. Are they going to be at their best? You're taking 2 of their best coaches out of the building, and of course taking time away from what they normally have to do to get ready for a game, because they're going to prepare for that life-changing interview that you just talked about that has life-changing money and everything. So that's where, even from the NFL standpoint, I want to go, man, NFL, it's the biggest games of the year, and we're taking away some of the biggest pieces from these teams that might make the game better or more interesting, a little more creative. Who knows? So there's a lot of issues there. But it's unfair to these candidates as compared to the guys who are sitting at home not doing anything right now. I think it is. And I don't know what it is either. I don't know, maybe if they can maybe they start the process, after the championship games. Maybe that's when you can start it, because there is a little wiggle room there and some free time to be had because there's 2 weeks before the Super Bowl. But this right now is not good for any of the coaches that are still involved, and it's just not a good process, and the people who are deserving kind of get screwed over more than the people who are not deserving, in my opinion.
And, after the championship games, you're down to 2 teams that are still active. And you're right. You've got a week. You could do the interviews then.
Yes. I'm not mad at Bowles or Leftwich are doing the interviews then, right? I mean,
right.
We got more time to figure this thing out, right?
I think that makes sense. And look, you can do the rest of the process. You can interview others. You just can't talk to the folks who lose in the conference championship round until after that week. Or you can't, basically what you're waiting for is 4 teams at that point.
Right.
Because after the divisional round, you're down to 4 teams. So, you just can't talk to any of these guys who are still alive. Why not that? Because I don't think it works to say, let's not let any interviews happen. Let's not let any work be done. Let's not let any jobs be filled. You just can't talk to guys who are still coaching. Why not that? Right? As of right now, you can talk to everybody in the league except coaches from the 8 teams that are left.
I think
After
that
Sunday,
should be,
there's only 4 teams left.
Right.
And you just can't talk to them.
Yeah.
And they can't talk to you. They can't be interviewed. They got to focus on their jobs. I think that's the only thing that works, because the idea of putting everything on ice until after the Super Bowl is not practical.
No, it's
just not practical.
That's too much. You're right. I agree.
And if you really want to wait for Byron Leftwich and Todd Bowles, Raheem Morris, you just wait. You just wait. You can do your research on the guy. You just can't talk to him. You can't interview him until he's done.
I would like to see that. I mean, again, I think, yes, let everybody interview. I like that idea. Get the process going. But so now you have a good feel for everybody else, and now, okay, the last piece of the process is these 2 or 3 coaches we were looking at that their teams are still playing in the playoffs. All right, after the championship game, we'll get to talk to them and be thorough too, because they're not going to have their mind in another place. They're going to know, wait, I got a little wiggle room with time here preparing for the Super Bowl, or, of course, the teams that lose. Either way, that week should be free. Go ahead, get everybody you want in that week. Go ahead and have that. I would like to see that. And ultimately, too, if those are the last pieces these organizations are coming to as far as who they're interviewing and the whole process, all right, now, so you come to the determination that, let's say, Todd Bowles or Byron Leftwich is going to be your head coach midway through the week after the championship game. You can announce it then, or you can wait after the Super Bowl, but 10 days is not going to matter at that point. It's okay. 10 days to him getting into the building after the Super Bowl, taking over the organization. They can still catch up at that point and get the process they need to for free agency and the draft. It's not so dire that, oh, no, the team that got their coach on January 27th has a real leg up on the team that got their coach February 10th. Oh, they're screwed over, that team that got him on February 10th. The season's over already. It's not that critical, in my opinion.
Well, no, look, the Colts had to scrap their approach after Josh McDaniels said no, and they went back to the drawing board. They got Frank Reich. Not that they had a great outcome this year, but it's not like you can say, well, the Colts missed the playoffs this year because they didn't get Frank Reich until after Super Bowl 52. So I think we may be stumbling onto just the process of talking this through. I think we're on to something. Yeah. We are on something. We are definitely on something. We also may be on to something. Because it makes Peter has been very hard and fast and firm in let's wait on everything until after the Super Bowl. That is not going to fly. That is never going to work. It's got to be a hybrid. And the only way to solve the problem is to say, if you're still coaching, you are off limits. That placates everyone at that point. And, the coaches who are still coaching may be upset about it, but there's nothing you can do about it, so just focus on the job you're currently doing.
Right.
It's not like you're going to sabotage your current job. You're not going to give up your shot at a Super Bowl ring just so you can finally interview for that job, because you know that they're doing their work, they're getting their ducks in a row, they're doing their research on you. They're just waiting for the opportunity to talk to you.
That's right.
At a time when you're not otherwise occupied trying to get ready to win a football game.
Yeah, that's right. And I mean, again, if you got confidence in yourself as a coach and that team has any brains at all, and they start to realize the good things you're doing and bringing that team to the Super Bowl or the championship game, they should wait. And again, the organizations, those are great selling points. Hey, look, the guy we hired was in the championship game. He's in the Super Bowl. We didn't just, panic because we had to get somebody in place in the middle of January. Right there. Oh, that's right. I know his team didn't make the wild card, but we got somebody in place. I don't know. It's easier to sell to your fan base success, I think, when you come and get a coach that's from a winner to a degree, too. So that's where I go to organizations and Coach Dungy's point of, what's the hurry here? Do your due diligence, and man, as we get down here to the Final 8, and whoever makes it to the Final 4, there's going to be a lot of quality coaches there that you'd go, hey, wait, we gotta do our due diligence and wait to interview this guy before we make something happen. There's a reason this team was there, is here, or whatever. So hopefully there is something done about it, because it's ridiculous right now. If I'm not even joking. I think differently a little bit about the Bucs right now. When I read this yesterday, I went, man, that's kind of a distraction this week. Whoa, you got to play the Rams, and you're getting ready for that game, a team that you've lost to in the regular season in the last 2 years, and now two of your 3 best coaches in your organization are going to have their mind on something else this week. And I don't think that's fair to those coaches. It's not fair to the players on the Bucs organization. It's not fair to the rest of the coaches on the Bucs organization that's the case. And then there's the Rams, who, yes, there's Raheem Morris, but they don't have an offensive coordinator in play or anything like that. And I didn't hear, is Raheem actually going to do the interview this week? I thought he put it off. Maybe you can help me there.
I don't know whether or not he said yes or no. All I know is the Vikings requested the opportunity to interview Raheem Morris this week. I wouldn't put it off if I was him. I'd get on that train while I can, find 2 hours sometime this week and do it, because I think he's paid his dues and he's in a position where he needs to be considered and maybe become a head coach again.
Yeah.
But I think it's a bigger deal. Now, look, Raheem Morris runs the defense in L.A. because Sean McVay, I still have the image of him sitting on the Gatorade cooler working on his next drive while Wade Phillips was basically running the team. But in Tampa Bay, Todd Bowles, he's going to interview with the Vikings on Friday and the Bears on Saturday. He clearly runs that defense with no interference of any kind by Bruce Arians. And Byron Leftwich, Arians has said it over and over again. Byron Leftwich runs the offense.
Yeah.
I mean, Tom Brady kind of does, but Leftwich, as Arians tells it, does more for the offense than Arians does, and he's going to interview with the Bears this week too. So it does become a distraction for a pretty significant game. I would suspect, they'll never admit this, I would suspect that the Buccaneers coaches were rooting like hell for the Cardinals on Monday night. Don't you think?
Well, just because they thought it might be easier
to face them.
I'm sure. Yeah, there's some problems with the Rams. There's a reason the Rams have beaten the Bucs the last 2 years. And again, I don't know if that's going to hold true again this weekend, but there's some real issues the Rams football team poses for the Bucs. In fact, I think it's like a very short list of teams that I look at in the NFL that go, this is one of the few matchups in the league that's not the best for the Bucs. I think they're the most talented team in football when they're healthy. And even that, without AB and Chris Godwin, I still look at them to be one of the most talented teams in football. But this matchup is not the best for them. And now you got Todd Bowles, who Friday, Saturday is not going to be there. I know the majority of the work's done already by that point, but man, I don't know how many times I could say, like on a Friday or Saturday, little tweaks to the game plan happen where, I was sitting at home last night and talking to blah, blah, blah coach, and we thought, when we do this, we should really change into this. Like some of the greatest ideas I was a part of as a player became from the coach on Friday and Saturday, who now he got to sleep on everything a little bit. He finally got arrested during the week a little, and now he came up with 2 or 3 ideas or tweaks to the game plan that after thinking about it, I want to change it. And that's going to be harder to do now when you're thinking about an interview and leaving town and doing all that crap.
We talked about it this week, the idea that there's a handful of great coaches and everybody else, and the great coaches are constantly looking and thinking and probing and using every second that they have to their advantage, every moment that they're awake, when they're laying in bed, when they're taking a shower, anything they're doing, the gears are constantly spinning and turning for ideas, any little thing. And it's funny because I was having a conversation a few years ago with a head coach on that very point, because it reminds me of when I was practicing law. When you're getting ready for a trial, when you're in trial, it becomes an all-encompassing effort to constantly be thinking, constantly be looking, constantly be searching, and coming up with ideas and anything you can do. And I said, it's great because you have, you can keep doing it. You can constantly do it. It's got to drive you crazy. But, and he's like, I got to go. You got me freaked out. I got to go. I got to get back to, watching whatever, doing whatever, because it's how you use that time. But you're using that time this week, some of that time, regardless of whether or not the hay's in the barn, like you're saying, you're using some of that time to do something other than be thinking about any edge you can create for your team to win a tough, difficult, challenging matchup on Sunday afternoon, 3 p.m. on NBC. Coverage begins at 2 p.m. on NBC and also on Peacock. We'll begin the process of getting you ready for the divisional round of the postseason.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.